I'm on a webpage called Pseudo Reality, Can You Handle the Truth? And they have a list of the current membership of the Committee of 300 and a nice article explaining many things. So I thought I'd read part of it to you. This is pretty interesting. What are the goals of the secret elite group, the inheritors of Illuminism, Moriah, conquering wind, the cult of Dionysius, the cult of Isis, Catharism, Bogomilism? This elite group that also calls itself the Olympians, they truly believe they are equal in power and stature to the legendary gods of Olympus, who have, like Lucifer, their god, set themselves above our true God, absolutely believe that they have been charged with implementing the following divine right. Goal number 1, a one-world government, New World Order, with a unified church and monetary system under their direction. Not many people are aware that the one world government began setting up its church in the 1920s and 1930s, for they realized the need for religious belief inherent in mankind to have an outlet, and therefore set up a church body to channel that belief in the direction they desired. Goal number 2, the utter destruction of all national identity and national pride. Goal number 3, the destruction of religion, and more especially the Christian religion, with the one exception, their own creation mentioned above. Number 4, control each and every person through means of mind control and what Brzezinski calls technotronics, which would create human-like robots and a system of terror, beside which Felix Dzerzhinsky's Red Terror would look like children at play. Goal number 5, an end to all industrialization and the production of nuclear-generated electric power in what they call the post-industrial zero-growth society. Exempted are the computer and service industries. United States industries that remain will be exported to countries such as Mexico, where abundant slave labor is available. Unemployables in the wake of industrial destruction will either become opium, heroin, or cocaine addicts, or become statistics in the elimination process we know today as Global 2000. Goal number 6, legalization of drugs and pornography. Number 7, depopulation of large cities, according to the trial run carried out by the Pol Pot regime in Cambodia. It is interesting to note that Pol Pot's genocidal plans were drawn up here in the United States by one of the Club of Rome's research foundations. It is also interesting that the committee is presently seeking to reinstate the Pol Pot butchers in Cambodia. Goal number 8, suppression of all scientific development except those deemed beneficial by the committee. Especially targeted is nuclear energy for peaceful purposes. Particularly hated are the fusion experiments presently being scorned and ridiculed by the committee and its jackals of the press. Development of the fusion torch will blow the committee's conception of limited natural resources right out the window. A fusion torch properly used could create unlimited, untapped natural resources from the most ordinary substances. Fusion torch uses are legion, and would benefit mankind in a manner which is as yet not even remotely comprehended by the public. Goal number 9, caused by means of limited wars in the advanced countries, and by means of starvation and diseases in third world countries, the death of 3 billion people by the year 2000, people they call useless eaters. The Committee of 300 commissioned Cyrus Vance to write a paper on this subject of how best to bring about such genocide. The paper was produced under the title The Global 2000 Report and was accepted and approved for action by President Carter for and on behalf of the U.S. government, and accepted by Edwin Muskie, then Secretary of State. Under the terms of the Global 2000 report, the population of the United States is to be reduced by 100 million by year 2050. Goal number 10, to weaken the moral fiber of the nation and to demoralize workers in the labor class by creating mass unemployment. As jobs dwindle due to the post-industrial zero-growth policies introduced by the Club of Rome, demoralized and discouraged workers will resort to alcohol and drugs. The youth of the land will be encouraged by means of rock music and drugs to rebel against the status quo, thus undermining and eventually destroying the family unit. In this regard, the Committee of 300 commissioned Tavistock Institute to prepare a blueprint as to how this could be achieved. Tavistock directed Stanford Research to undertake the work under the direction of Professor Willis Harman. This work later became known as the Aquarian Conspiracy. I think I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Goal number 11, to keep people everywhere from deciding their own destinies by means of one created crisis after another, and then managing such crises. This will confuse and demoralize the population to the extent where, faced with too many choices, apathy on a massive scale will result. In the case of the United States, an agency for crisis management is already in place. It's called the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, whose existence I disclosed in 1980. Goal number 12, to introduce new cults and continue to boost those already functioning, which includes rock music gangsters such as the filthy, degenerate Mick Jagger's Rolling Stones, a gangster group much favored by European black nobility, and all of the Tavistock-created rock groups, which began with the Beatles, to continue to build up the cult of Christian fundamentalism began by the British East India Company's servant, Darby, which will be misused to strengthen the Zionist state of Israel through identifying with the Jews through the myths of God's chosen people and by donating very substantial amounts of money to what they mistakenly believe is a religious cause in the furtherance of Christianity. Goal number 13, to press for the spread of religious cults such as the Muslim Brotherhood, Muslim fundamentalism, the Sikhs, and to carry out experiments of the Jim Jones and Son of Sam type murders. It is worth noting that the late Ayatollah Khomeini was a creation of British Intelligence Military Intelligence Division 6, commonly known as MI6, as I reported in my 1985 work, What Really Happened in Iran. Goal number 14, to export religious liberation ideas around the world so as to undermine all existing religions, but more especially the Christian religion. This began with Jesuit liberation theology, which brought about the downfall of the Somoza family rule in Nicaragua, and which is today destroying El Salvador, now 25 years into a civil war, Costa Rica, and Honduras. One very active entity engaged in so-called liberation theology is the communist-oriented Mary Knoll Mission. This accounts for the extensive media attention to the murder of 4 of Mary Knoll's so-called nuns in El Salvador a few years ago. The 4 nuns were communist subversive agents, and their activities were widely documented by the government of El Salvador. The United States press and news media refused to give any space or coverage to the mass of documentation in possession of the Salvadorian government. Documentation which proves what the Mary Knoll Mission nuns were doing in the country. Mary Knoll is in service in many countries and playing a leading role in bringing communism to Rhodesia, Mozambique, Angola, and South Africa. Goal number 15, to cause a total collapse of the world's economies and engender total political chaos. Goal number 16, to take control of all foreign and domestic policies of the United States. Goal number 17, to give the fullest support to supranational institutions such as the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, the Bank of International Settlements, the World Court, and as far as possible make local institutions of lesser effect by gradually phasing them out or bringing them under the mantle of the United Nations. Goal number 18, penetrate and subvert all governments and work from within them to destroy the sovereign integrity of nations represented by them. Goal number 19, organize a worldwide terrorist apparatus, and negotiate with terrorists whenever terrorist activities take place. It will be recalled that it was Bettino Craxi who persuaded the Italian and the U.S. governments to negotiate with the Red Brigade's kidnappers of Prime Minister Aldo Moro, and General Dozier. As an aside, General Dozier is under orders not to talk about what happened to him. Should he break that silence, he will no doubt be made a horrible example of in the manner in which Kissinger dealt with Aldo Moro, Ali Bhutto, and General Zia-ul-Haq. Goal number 20. Take control of education in America with the intent and purpose of utterly and completely destroying it. Much of these goals, which I first enumerated in 1969, have since been achieved or are well on their way to being achieved. Of special interest in the Committee of 300 program is the core of their economic policy, which is largely based on the teachings of Malthus, the son of an English country parson, who was pushed to prominence by the British East India Company, upon which the Committee of 300 is modeled. Malthus maintained that a man's progress is tied to the Earth's natural ability to support a given number of people, beyond which point Earth's limited resources would rapidly be depleted. Once these natural resources have been consumed, it will be impossible to replace them. Hence Malthus observed, it is necessary to limit populations within the boundaries of decreasing natural resources. It goes without saying that the elite will not allow themselves to be threatened by a burgeoning population of useless eaters, hence culling must be practiced. As I have previously stated, culling is going on today using the methods mandated in the Global 2000 report. Dr. John Coleman, former British intelligence officer, The Conspirators' Hierarchy, the Committee of 300.